welcome to a new episode of The Most Famous Person I Barely Met, the podcast that is now international. As I introduce you and interview to another fine author, another Vine Leads Press author, coming to us from, I'll let him say, but it's not America, but it's a country dear to my heart. Today's guest is Andrew Verlaine. And Andrew, we'll start with thank you. Hello. And
Hi. Thanks for having me on.
please tell us, where are you right now? Where are we beaming into you?
Yeah, it's evening time here in Dublin, in Ireland, and the sun is drawing in. So,
So Dublin, Ireland, Dublin, Ireland. I was telling Andrew and I had a little chat before, and I've been to Ireland once, but my grandparents on my father's side are from Ireland, so I have a lot of great affection for Ireland, and everything about it. So Andrew, you're a native-born son of Ireland?
that's right. Yeah, I grew up in Ireland. I lived in Cardiff in Wales for a couple of years, and then in Cork,
In
and
Cork.
South Cork City, just on the
I
in
love.
the south of Ireland, and then but I've been back in Dublin now for a good few years now.
Yeah, I love. I've been to Cork too, and I went not too far from Cork. I believe it's the Jameson Distillery or something like that.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I took my wife and her father there, and we had a really good time with the samples. I didn't care about the tour so much. It was the samples. It was great. I love
Well,
Ireland.
you can probably pace yourself more at the Guinness storehouse because you're drinking beer, but
Oh,
like yeah, you have to be careful with whiskey. It's
yeah. Maybe we should stop and I'll fly over right now, and we'll. I love Guinness too. So, Andrew, tell us a little bit about your life. Who are you? What do you do? Family? Give us the big picture.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I've worked in various day jobs. I've changed career a couple of times in the last few years, so I've had kind of professional whiplash somewhat. But I worked as a researcher for in the university sector for the guts of a decade. My main discipline was in psychology. I then worked as a social care worker for about a year, and now I work more kind of in administration, kind of between government sector and the university sector, higher education. So, yeah, I'm an avid part-time writer. In terms of my writer's biography, the first time I started writing was I was 10, I think, and there was nothing on television one Saturday morning, so I sort of started writing a short story and I never looked back. So that
That wasn't a
um,
good show, but it was a great show for you. Yeah. Um,
yeah.
I'm gonna go back to the research. So, did you study psychology? Do you have a master's in psychology or social work?
Yeah, no, I did a master's PhD kind of via research in psychology. So I was quite on the academic end,
Hmm.
but I've done some bits and pieces of work in mental health here and there.
Wow, nice.
Um,
Yeah, I worked in the mental health
so
field for a long time too. I was just talking to another guest how I believe it really helps writing to have a psychological background or to have some insight. That's my opinion. But in my case, I was in analysis that helped. So
yeah, it can certainly, yeah. I think you can by studying sometimes academic psychology can be quite a little bit dry or it's quite methodical or analytical.
yeah,
But I suppose having that broad understanding of different different psychological conditions or different even
yeah,
therapeutic approaches and so on can kind of inform um, some of the ways you can think um, about psychological fiction. So
yeah.
I suppose this might be a good segue to talk about my debut novel. It's
I'm
just
not gonna let you off the hook just yet. Do you do you do you remember the first story you wrote when you were a little kid?
Yes, the first story I wrote it was called Money. No, it was something like Money Can't Buy Happiness or Money Isn't Happiness. When I was 10, it was about a guy who wins the lottery, and then he's kind of harassed by and threatened by people who realize he's very rich now and sort of want to um you know get his money essentially.
Right.
So it was. I think it was based on some. It might have been. I used to watch a lot of afternoon chat shows after school, like um, sort of when I was in my at the babysitter's house, what have you. So I think I heard some kind of life interest story or something about that, where some it was about people who had won the lottery and then it had basically destroyed their lives. So I was kind of influenced by that, I suppose.
That's
So
so cool. I love that you know it. I love that you know it. The first story, Money Can't Buy Me Happiness.
oh,
Did
everyone knows their first story. They just pretend to forget their
Well, you
history.
get to my age, you forget a lot of things. I forget what I did yesterday. Do you still have it? Did it do you still have
No, I'm afraid it's lost in the sand. It's lost in the sands of time. But
Oh my, well, very good. So do you still believe that money can't buy you happiness, Andrew? At 10 years old, you had a view, but now as a mature man, do you still believe in that tenet?
it's hard to be happy when you don't have any. But
That's right. I mean,
there's yeah.
yeah,
Because there's a certain kind of law of diminishing returns, I guess. The more you get, the less
well,
you can get out of it, I suppose.
that's why we write, right? For the riches, right? For the big money, for the big money. All right. So that now I'll let you talk. Andrew's got a great new novel, his first out, called Stigma Play. Great, beautiful cover. Such a cool book. I just got it and I can't wait to read it because it's right up my alley. Um, but tell us a little bit about it. We were talking about psychology, so I know this plays a role. So give us a little background on the book.
Sure. Before I forget, I'll just give credit to Jessica Bell for the design of this cover. I had the book launch there in February at Chapters bookstore in Dublin. Great
Oh,
bookshop.
congratulations.
Multiple people just when they came up to me, they said the book cover really appealed to them.
Beautiful.
In terms of the psychology and the novel itself, Stigma Play. I suppose I segued in by talking about my day job, my previous day jobs as well. So I suppose I'm quite keen to kind of say that this is very much a fictitious work of fiction and
Hmm.
a work of metafiction at that. It's probably influenced as much by my the work I've done over the years. It's probably even more influenced by I suppose my love of kind of horror stories or scary stories. So
Hmm.
even from that young age, like I was always kind of trying to get a rise or a scare out of the reader. But this is Stigma Play is a work of metafiction, and it's I suppose a Black Mirror-esque premise whereby we have a committee of upper middle class to upper class, very successful people representing different expertises or professions. So we have one committee member who's a senior politician, another who's a psychologist, another who's a bishop, who
Hmm.
they've created a series of simulations in a
Mhm.
near future setting that are going to simulate different mental health conditions or psychological disorders. And we follow I suppose the identifiable protagonist in this unusual world
Hmm.
is their new beta tester for this technology.
Oh, interesting.
So the novel is kind of it alternates between the simulations themselves and where we see various different characters in this interconnecting narrative in an unnamed
Hmm.
town in the United States or the fictitious United States we all know and love from movies in Hollywood. It
Scary
alternates
here. Scary here. Trust me. Okay.
it alternates between the story of the stories in the simulations and
Hmm.
the what's happening with the committee who are testing their these stories that we're following as well, and the June the beta tester who's following this. So I guess it was kind of a platform for me as kind of a metafictional work to kind of explore the rather vexed relationship between psychological the stigma associated with
Hmm.
psychological disorders and
Hmm.
the genre of psychological horror,
Uh-huh.
and so how the two can interact, and I suppose the risks of portraying people who have mental health problems in different ways within that
Beautiful.
subgenre.
Wow, I really like it. It's such a good concept. And it's set in a future that we don't know, like a future. It's set ahead of. It's set in the future. Okay.
It's set in the near future, yeah.
Near
So
future. Yeah.
it's perhaps a little bit fancy. It's quite near future in some ways. Like it's a bit fanciful in terms of how far the technology has come in terms of it.
Yeah.
It's like supposed to be a completely immersive
Yeah.
virtual reality. But it's the real world of the novel, this near future setting. It's almost entirely in a bunker,
Yeah. Oh, cool.
where the committee have holed themselves up with their brand new tech kit
Oh, I
to
like
run
that.
these
I like
simulations.
that. I'm in a bunker right now, so that's very good. So no, I'm not. Would you call it dystopia?
Yeah, I think it's been described as
Mm.
dystopian fiction. I guess the it has kind of a restricted setting. So we see the bunker and we also see June's apartment as well, but it's a very restricted kind of space, and
Yeah.
there's an underlying feeling of kind of late capitalism, job precarity, kind of
Nice. Well, that's my
almost
kind of
Brentford
stuff.
homelessness kind of vibe. So yeah.
I mean, I'm a big Orwell fan. I'm a big, my first novel, not to put it on me, was a dystopian novel, Book of Ash, about your future, and it had a mental health theme too. And I found out, I want to ask you, I found it so hard, even though it was the right where I wanted to write, what I wanted to write, and the way I wanted to write it, but it's so hard to write when you're not in the present moment because you have to
Mhm.
always imagine what's life going to be like then. I mean, you're sort of building a new world, correct? Was that one of the challenges, or what was some of the hardest challenges?
I think the challenge of world building was somewhat restricted in term, or was offset or lessened somewhat by, I suppose, the restricted geographical setting, I suppose. And I suppose a factor that, like a lot of dystopian or science fiction novels, it's as much about what hasn't changed as what has.
Yeah.
So we have this very fancy new technology that's much more immersive
Hmm.
in terms of how it stimulates the senses or jogs these kind of autobiographical memories that aren't your own memories. They belong to the
Hmm.
character.
Hmm.
But I suppose the way people talk about things, certain things, I deliberately tweaked certain words, but they tend to be words that tend to change a lot.
Hmm.
The euphemism treadmill or things like
Yeah.
that. So, for example, there's this sensitivity slash authenticity reader is one of the characters in it, but they've started calling it cool ethics,
Oh, 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 I
which I
love
thought would
that.
be. It's just because it's so those kind of words where there's kind of discourse about how we talk about it and they're still shifting and people are still kind of thinking through what kind
Right?
of language they want to use to describe the concept. So I deliberately only there's maybe six or seven neologisms in the whole novel, but they were all deliberately chosen to be those kinds of words.
Yeah. Well, you got to have fun too when you're writing it, right? You got to. I mean, that's the greatest thing in 1984. The new words, double think, and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You know, when I think of this genre and all that, it's like I always say the same thing about Orwell because people say well, he was a prophetic. He was prophetic. He was prophetic, and I say no, he was actually present. And I think writers like you and I'm not gonna who are doing this. It's because we sense something now and we're trying to get to
Yeah.
a truth now, a deeper truth, and we use the vehicle of another world to actually make sense of what we're feeling now, and then it weaves in, and then it feels prophetic, but it's actually probably based on a lot of what is happening now. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, there is sort of an adage about yeah, we use science fiction about the future to understand the present.
I think so.
Um, so I think that is kind of true. And if we want to kind of understand technology and how that will affect us in the future, we can probably think about what we have now and where we might like to take it next.
That's
And I
right.
mean, the way that's going to be driven, I mean, there'll always be bottlenecks based on what you can practically achieve in terms of physics and the hard science. But the way in which the way in which the technology is going to be used or played out, or the way it's going to affect people is going to be driven by factors around human nature that are
Yeah,
as old as evolution itself in
that's
some
right.
ways. So it comes back to the that whole kind of Black Mirror would be a good example
I,
of.
Tell
Yeah.
your Irish you're a deep thinker. We're deep thinkers, the Irish. We're deep thinkers. We're a little pessimistic. We're a little pessimistic, but we're deep thinkers, and we're really fun. Well, I'm very excited. I recommend this book. I've heard great things about it. I just got it. So go to Vine Leaves Press um, and buy this book. Buy 5 of these books. Throw them at people. How long did it take you to write it?
I have a little homage to the ending of Ulysses at the end. It was a slight structural influence in terms of different chapters
Nice.
are influenced by different modes of writing. So you have one that's one chapter that's like it has a piece in the style of an academic paper, or another one that's in the style of a play, like a theatrical play, and so on.
Beautiful.
Sorry, I'm going off on a diversion here, but
I
yeah.
love
So
this is all about tangents here. We love tangents.
Ulysses. So the book ends with it says Dublin 2020 to 2024. So I
Oh,
started writing in 2020, and by the time kind of all
okay.
the major edits, etc., were finished, it was 2024.
Congratulations. And got another one in the hopper? You working on what are you working on?
So the first novel I wrote is sitting with Vine Leaves Press at the moment, but I had a it's probably poor etiquette to say that actually if it's bad luck, but sorry about that.
That's okay.
Cut that out in post. I'm working on another book at the moment, which is based on another character, focuses in more on another one of the committee members in Stigma Play, the Bishop, and it's probably my most ambitious one yet, but it's split into different parts. But for simplicity, I'll just say the first part, which is the one I've done the most on, is essentially Weekend at Bernie's, but set in the Vatican. And it's
Oh,
quite timely. I know the new Pope has just come
yeah,
in.
yeah, yeah. I
Actually, I
hope.
think an American Pope as well. So
Oh,
it's
yeah, please. Well, good for you. I mean, one of these days, though, I do want you to write "Money Can Buy You Happiness." I want you to write that story, please. I want you to change that. Well, this is fun. I love talking to writers. Love talking to writers. So interesting. Andrew, before we get into
yes.
the reason we're all here, not just, well, I wanted to meet you, about the most famous person, I always ask every guest a mystery question. And I'm a
Oh yes.
silly man. I'm a silly man. I'm a strange man. I got a lot of issues. I'm an Irish Italian man. I just found out Anthony's wife is Italian. Anthony,
Right,
in
yeah.
America, we are obsessed with Bigfoot. I don't know if you even know Bigfoot in Ireland or whatever. Yeti
I've
or
heard of Bigfoot, but I'm certainly not an authority on Bigfoot.
so, have you seen such a creature walking around Ireland? Because I always say the same thing. If you have, the rest of the podcast, that's all we talk about. We don't even care about anything else. Have you seen in Ireland, in Dublin, in Cork, in I don't know where, at a pub, drinking Guinness, walking around, a Sasquatchian figure? I don't think. Maybe in your dreams. I would say, is that a no? Okay.
Buried the lead somewhere with the dream. It's funny that you asked about. It's funny that you asked about dreams because
Hmm.
I had a dream last night that you were in.
Me?
Yeah, I have. I tend to have kind of a certain touch of anxiety
Was I
before
was
I.
I dressed as Bigfoot? Was I walking around, or was I? Okay. Well, the narcissist in me says, "Oh, I like that." You know what I mean? I'll take any
No,
attack as long as I wasn't mean, as long as I was a nice guy. Okay.
no,
Okay.
I had this I had watched one of your previous
Uh huh.
videos, and I could sort of picture the room that you were in there. Like it was
Here.
yeah, it was like not quite day, not quite night. It was somewhere in between the two. And you were kind of standing over the computer trying to do the interview, but you seemed to be, I couldn't quite tell if you were like crying or laughing. And I kind of looked up and I could hear the sound like there were these feet kind of um scrabbling on
Oh
um the ceiling, and I sort of became kind of increasingly anxious as the dream went on. And
my God. Well, I do cry a lot in front
when
of a
I
computer, so
when I when I woke up, I
I'm
I
not doing
realized
it. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it.
I'm sorry, John. I'm just making this up as I go along. I didn't have any dream
Oh,
related
you
to this.
such a you got Steve. kids, this is why you can't trust fiction writers. This is why they're so good. And this is the level of my neediness. I was so happy that he had a dream about me. And he got me right on. I cry over the computer, a lot of strange noises. Andrew, you're funny. I like you a lot. I like you. I like you. I like you. All
Thank
right.
you.
All right, young man. Who is the most famous person you barely met? Give us a story.
Okay. Yeah, I know you flagged up that this was kind of the main theme of your interviews, and I sort of balked about telling the story of the most famous person I barely met because it has some unfortunate elements in it. But yeah, it kind of touches on kind of representation, kind of racist representations from the past, etc. But yeah, if you're forewarned, I'll let you know.
Forewarned, let's go.
Okay. So when I was in secondary school, I know you're saying young man. It's not that far back. It was probably a little over 20 years ago.
Okay.
Um, there was a number of schools around Dublin collaborating on a play. So they're putting on the stage in one of the schools, and there was a one of the young fellas I knew around the same age as me was decided he was quite big into acting, and he was very keen to take part in it. So eventually he landed a role in it after having done the auditions, etc. I wasn't taking part in the play. I was just going to go along to watch, but I was aware of a few people who were in it, and they were kind of chatting about the different parts they had taken on. This particular actor, he was a soft-spoken kind of bloke, quite extroverted on stage. But with hindsight, I'd have the impression that he'd be a young man who would have a hard time saying no. So, he's in school, 16, a lot of different teachers, telling you, you've got this role and you're doing things this way or that way. So this would have been in back when Dublin was a less diverse place. It was probably becoming more so than it was, say, in the 80s, but it was still fairly homogenous. So I think if the cast wasn't entirely like white Irish people, it was very close to that. And it was a play set, say, way back in the United States, in the not so good old days for a lot of people. And the role that he was playing was an African American man. And because I think the play was written quite a long time ago, you could see that this character was being played for laughs and was somewhat the butt of jokes, etc.
Hmm.
Now, this actor, he was quite a clever guy. Like, and he was kind of reading the text and trying to read more into it, or trying to reinterpret it for maybe for a more contemporary audience. And he had the sense that, I think that there's a lot of intelligence in this character, or that can kind of shine through if I play it a certain way that you might not see on the page, but I can kind of make a more kind of rounded, more interesting person out of it. And he said that one of the teachers who was directing it was saying, "No, no, you have to play this character as stupid as possible, like to go all the way with it." Like, so yeah, so it was an awkward one. So I wanted to go along to support my peers or whatever. So
Hmm.
I went along to it. The play, it was a musical, so it was quite. There was a lot of sound on stage, a lot of movement, a lot of dancing, a lot of music, and so on. But you would have kind of dialogue scenes here and there as well. And I think a lot of us were aware what the character was going to be like
Hmm.
before he came on. He was really only in one major scene. So when he came out on stage, like my visual memory of it isn't 100%. So I don't think he was wearing like boot polish or anything, but I think everyone was wearing makeup, but there was a sense that he was darkened up a bit more than his
Hmm.
pasty Irish complexion would normally be. And yeah, I think before that there was kind of an atmosphere of fun in the room, but there was almost like an airlessness
Hmm.
that you could feel like when if there was like a second between pieces of dialogue, you could hear a pin drop in the room or a
Wow.
nervousness in the room. So it's the sort of thing. It's one of those interesting things where you think about things that wouldn't happen today. But
Right. Right.
I think it was probably at that time when I think it was just about on the cusp of when you know teachers or whoever thought they could get away with it, but people were kind of
Yeah.
realizing this isn't okay to do.
Yeah.
So I do kind of feel bad for the guy with hindsight because, like I say, he was I think 16, if even, like, probably felt that he couldn't say no and so on.
Hmm.
And the reason I selected this story, I'm going to jump back in time to before the scene, was we'd all filed in, scrunching up our packets of crisps and so on to eat them before the action started and so on.
Right.
And after nearly all the seats were full, one of the teachers from this particular school, it wasn't my own school where it was performed, I should say, but one of the teachers came on the mic and said, we would like everyone to stand now to welcome the President of Ireland to this performance. So we all had to stand up to allow the head of state to enter the auditorium and sit down the front.
Yeah.
So that kind of awkwardness was that I mentioned previously was ramped up, 10 times because of the fact that we were aware that the head of state was in the room with us as we were
Wow.
watching the onstage debacle. So yeah, that was the most. I never spoke to the president afterwards, but that was the most famous or important person that I barely met.
Ah, wow. What a great story. What's the president's name again?
The then president was Mary McAleese.
Mary McAleese. Wow.
Yeah, I should say the president
Wow.
of Ireland is more of a. It has less power than the president of the United States. So
Right, right, right.
yeah, the president of Ireland is almost a little bit closer to, say, the King of England than nowadays compared
That's right.
to the King of the
Right.
United States.
What a good story. You tell it really well too. And it's funny because I grew up in an era. I'm older than you, but it's like the things that happen would never happen. You know what I mean? And but like I remember they used to in our we used to do square dancing when I was in grade school, and they would put all the boys on one side and all the girls on the other, and then they would
Okay.
say they would pick one boy, go pick one girl to go to dance, and
Hmm.
it was terrible. It was terrible that they put us through this. And if you God help you were the last person picked, and everyone laughing, and it's like, how in God's name did intelligent adult people not consider that we were traumatized by it? So I don't know. So there's a lot of good things that have happened to the world that we're aware, but that uncomfortness was just that you experienced was just magnified with this, the head of state is there. So good story. Good story.
I'm sure it built character in you anyway, John.
Well, I don't know. I was picked last. And I never know. But I don't know if it built character. I don't know. I don't know. I'm here though. I won't square dance though, even if you make me. Even if you make me. Um, Let me ask you this. Even though I always ask the same thing, but is the president, is that person still with us? Is still alive?
Mary McAleese is still alive. Yeah, she's not the president anymore.
Oh, if you saw her now, what would you say?
Um, anything, if I could say anything at all, or about
Well,
the,
if you
the
run into her, would you mention that you saw her at this play or what?
I don't think she wouldn't have met me, like I say, so she wouldn't. I would have been a bit of face in the crowd.
If you saw the director of the play now, what would you say? If you saw the person, would you have something to say to them?
I think I'd probably walk past them somewhere.
Very good, very good. Well, that was a good story. And I'm learning and I'm learning and I'm learning. The stories are always fun, especially people like Andrew and can tell a good story. But I'm so much more interested in you. That's so fun and your life. And I wish you a lot of success. More books coming. And hold up your book one more time for the
Oh
audience.
yeah, sure.
I cannot recommend it highly enough because I know how good Vine Leaves Press is, and Jessica Bell picks the best. She picks the best.
I
So
should say, actually, yeah, I just want to. I kind of balked initially at telling that story, but there are kind of. It does touch on the novel, among other things. It touches on problematic representations of mental health, psychological problems or psychological disorders, and so on. It does touch a lot on kind of misogyny, racism, and other kind of prejudicial issues as well. So, yeah, it's not for for the easily
Oh,
upset with.
those are the good ones. Those are the good ones. We gotta listen. If we don't push ourselves into the pain, to the corners, we don't get through it. We don't learn. We don't. Wisdom is. I always say wisdom is pain plus time, and what we do with it. So a lot of
So
wisdom.
you do a bit of line dancing for us or square dancing? Or...
I put a lot of pain on people when I line dance and square dance. I was a bad square. I'm not a good dancer, Andrew. I'm not a good dancer, but I enjoy it. I enjoy it. My wife's a good dancer. My wife's a good dancer, but she won't dance with me. No, that's for another. No, she will. She will. Well, thank you, my friend. This is really nice. Folks, if you like, and I hope you liked what you liked today, hit the like button, subscribe to not miss a show, buy Andrew's book, Stigma Play. Keep an eye out for him. If you're in Dublin walking around and you see him, tell him that Bigfoot does exist. Okay, he doesn't believe it. And have a good psychological conversation with this person. And I call you young man because you're younger than I am. And anyone I like, I call kid or young person. So I like you. All right, Andrew. Thank you very, very much.
Thanks for having me on, John. I appreciate
Bye
it.
bye.